brother.
Welcome, people. This is a late one tonight, and we got a special guest in the house. This is Black Eyes TV7, Mr. Riggs, Terry Riggs, UK tour guide to the rest of the world. Today we're going in, and we're going to be talking about certain things in the community, with the government. Do we actually trust this government that we have at this present moment? This global thing, this understanding, because we have to understand: are we sheep, or are we have our own mind thinking? But before I go into that, I'm going to put my co-host forward and break it down, Richie.
What's good, people? I'm on the roads right now, making my way back to my house, but I'm very happy to have my good friend, Mr. Macon, joining us for this conversation. If you don't know, me and George have been doing shows on his channel, George Macon 2 and George Macon, both YouTube channels, to go and check that out. And we've been doing shows about eugenics, about the Blacks family, PTSD, all sorts of stuff. So that's definitely worth a check out. But today, as Mr. Riggs said, we got him on to kind of analyze the situation globally and to talk generally about governments and how Black people view them. So without further ado, Mr. Macon, introduce yourself, start off where you want to start off, brother. I know you're not feeling too good today, so I will allow you for not being 100% turned up, but that's all good.
Yeah, how's everybody doing out there, man? With all the stuff that's been going on now with this COVID-19 stuff, it's going globally. There's been arguments, especially here in the States, about trusting the government, trusting immunizations. Me and Richie, we've done videos on immunizations. We talked about Monsanto. We talked about we've had numerous discussions with the people, and should Black people actually trust the government? And I was saying there's a difference between trusting the government and being dependent upon it based off of Trump, or based off of not being able to acquire generational wealth to the point where the government systematically made you dependent upon it. So those are two different aspects of it. But as far as the conversation and the topic today is about trusting the government. And I don't think that Black people, especially here in the West, should trust the government at all, knowing our history.
Yeah, and that's why I always say going back into the past and then looking at the present and then looking forward into that future, does it give us a thing to able to trust? And a lot of people these days seem to forget about the past and think that, okay, let's trust them now. But what do we think that's going to able to change that if they don't like you in the beginning and trust you in the future? How's that going to work itself? So, when we go into forms of past and we look at the atrocities that are happening in Haiti, what's happening in the spice wars in times of opium wars and things like that, what they did to communities and wiping out communities in its perspective. So, like, George, in your understanding of some of the things that you've been going through and your investigations in the topics that you've been doing, What have you kind of noticed from that past?
Wait, say that one more time. Say it just one more time.
So, like in the past, like I've been seeing you go through your discussions, and when we talk about what the certain families have done and how the families have gone around certain things of their own purpose and agenda in forms of power and able to influence governments. What is your experiences of what you have learned so far?
Well, I mean, just I like to even simplify it.
Yeah.
When you look at us here in the States and in the Caribbean, and our family members that make it from, because I look at it this way. When I look at the motherland like Africa, DNA wise, bloodline wise, I'm an African. But when it comes to like Negroes or ancestors that were snatched from the continent and brought here from the Caribbean to the Americas, we are our own tribe. We are our own people, and our experience here, us having European names, speaking European languages, all the things that we could talk about, what we've been through in the Caribbean and in North America. Why would we ever trust the government? What has the government done for us to actually get our trust? I'm a type of person. I just like to just put it in simple form. Like, they call me an African American, but my name is George Macon. I speak English. Like, who the hell am I? And I call myself black. So like, being like, who am I to even trust the government?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the questions. When I look at myself in the mirror, a Chinaman can call himself Chinese. He has a language he can speak.
Mm-hmm.
He can speak Mandarin. He can speak the other language that they have there. And, the Arab man, he can speak Arabic. But you call me African American, but I'm African what? African who? African where? Why would I ever trust this government?
Mm-hmm. And if you look in the forms of the past, in forms of destroying the family, and like most of the people that have come from Africa to the Americas, most of them have been coming from at such a young age where their identity has been removed. So when you get to the places like Americas, you now wonder to yourself, what was their agenda? Why were they doing what they were doing? So
okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on. I want you to elaborate.
The question I would have to ask is, after you brought us here, and after slavery was over, and you had these so-called amendments put on the books, why did you further them? Why did you further the lie? Why didn't you just tell us the truth? Why didn't you just tell us that it was already Africans here, and then you brought Africans here and mixed us and mashed us together? And just like how you got Yorubas in Nigeria and Igbo and Hausa, and you have Fulani all up and down the west coast of Africa. Well, it's how many million? It's probably 100 million of us here in the West. We are our own tribe, but you never told us like who we are, where we come from. You got us up under all these ambiguous terms to the point where Jamaicans don't like Trinidadians, Trinidadians don't like Barbadians, African Americans don't like Caribbeans, and so forth. So we can't even unite based off of your false teachings and your institutions and your economic policies to keep us under your foot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's almost to the point when you come to where you're at in the UK, a lot of people from the Caribbean leave the UK left Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados out of desperation to come to the UK to get a better life. And when they did it, they became even more, what's the word I want to use, integrated into white society.
Mm-hmm. So in looking at that past and how they've treated us, what do you reckon, is looking at the system? Because one thing I've kind of noticed, and when I do forms of research, is what I've realized is that, like, let's use the UK for instance, when they sent most of their people, the people that maintained the like, for instance, the slavery, were criminals.
Yes.
And if you're looking at criminals looking after your interest, they're going to come through a criminal aspect or criminal mind state. So if I'm like a murderer, how am I going to look after the people that are in slavery? Am I going to use the same mentality as how I treat the streets when I was in Great Britain as a murderer, and apply that on the people of slavery?
Yeah. Well, they actually basically made attempts to recreate Britain here on the shores of North America.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know those, but they didn't do it alone. They had help. They had help with people that look like us as well. So you know, it's the slavery thing is multifaceted. You know, it's a lot of you know, it's a lot of things that go to that story, because you know our stuff didn't start with 1619. You know, they was here was it 1552 down in Florida. You know, so it's it's a complex story. I try to understand is, with everything that we've been through today, how do we recapture our African minds in the West, to the point where we're in the system of capitalism, but we're not competing at a level of other groups, because we've lost our I want to find the right words. Even if we wasn't operating from a fully continental African mind, we should be operating from a mind as a tribal group of understanding what we've been through here in the West. What we've been through here in the West should be something that should actually bring us together. The same way you see the Wolof people or the Mandingo people, you know, or you know, the different tribes here in the West. Even if we come from Jamaica, we come from South Carolina, North Carolina, it should be something that should be identifiable with us in here in the West, and we just don't have it. To this day, I can see a person from St. Paul, or a black person from Panama, and you get them up in the city, and we act like we're not related. We act like we don't even know each other. But then you see that's the Indian groups. They all of them live in one building together, doing IT and engineering and everything else, and we banging on each other. You know, so I gotta look at what slavery did to us mentally, because we're all children of the plantations, descendants of the children of the plantations. So it seems like everybody else knows who we are but us.
Why would you think that would be like that though?
Well, I think America, see, slavery is a stain on the mental and social fabric of America. And the more and more they can assimilate those descendants, the less they have to talk about them, and the less dangerous we'll see. Because you got to remember, y'all had what's the Darkest Hour over there in the UK?
Yeah, and we had a lot of people don't realize is like Michael X, and the way he went around, where he had evidence of something within the government, and the government were very smart, because when they apparently accused him of murder, they didn't bring him back to the UK, but what they did was they took him back from Guyana all the way back to Trinidad, because of the Trinidadian laws.
You talking about Walter Rodney?
Huh?
Who did you say, Walter Rodney? Who did you
say? Michael X.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Michael X. But they knew that, okay, the best way, if we want to hang this guy, is not to deport him back to the UK because he killed an MP's daughter, but to deport him back to Trinidad, where they knew they still had the hanging laws. And because of the hanging laws, where it's under the Queen's jurisdiction of the Caribbean, because a lot of people don't realize that the Queen owns majority of these Caribbean islands.
Yes.
So it was something where she could extradite, because she owned Guyana. She was able to extradite Michael X to Trinidad, which had hanging laws. So they were able to finish him off, because he had certain information that wasn't privy to the general public, which could be a threat.
Trinidad was a hot spot back in the 60s, man.
Yeah. So it tells me these are the kind of things where the government are able to utilize in whatever they need done.
Yeah.
So, go on.
Well, see, when you're dealing with the the time of the 60s and the Black Power movement, people just think that the Black Power movement was just in America. They don't understand that it was a global phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the Black Power movement down in Bermuda was vicious.
Mm-hmm.
It was vicious. They was killing everything moving. Trinidad, it was serious. Jamaica, Australia, over there in the UK, so Canada, but they don't really teach this to our people to get an understanding of the fight that our people was putting forth to try to recapture that mind that was stolen from us.
Yeah, because they don't even mention the facts of even the times of Grenada, and when Grenada and Cuba came together with against the American system, and knowing that what a lot of people don't understand is America is like the child of the United Kingdom, so it's the wild child.
Yes. Yep.
So,
yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Well, George, I was going to say that, speak to that point, because again, a lot of people tend to believe or feel like this a complete different world here in the UK government-wise to America. But obviously, when me and you've done shows and we've seen the inherent link, and as Terry was just saying, the chronological order of how America came about, speak to what you've observed about that and the similarities that you've kind of seen.
When you say that, use my computer. Say that one more time. It was kind of low. Say it one more time, bro.
Sorry, speak to the similarities between the American system and the British system based in how they are formed, like what Terry was just saying, because a lot of people believe they're two separate systems or completely or operate completely autonomous from each other.
America's Britain's youngest son.
Yeah, go on.
America's the Britain's youngest son, man. It's all controlled. It's all controlled by shadow governments, man. The 300 Committee, the Council of 13, Chatham House, that all your presidents answer to, all these secret societies. Right. They're all connected to Europe, man. This democracy system is a fake system that's set up to make you believe you have a voice where you really don't. And they all set that up to make people believe they have a voice to stop them from rebelling. See, you got to remember, you have certain families that control 60 to 70% of the wealth, but they insulate and hide themselves within the matrix that they create, and they create hierarchies there, so that way you'll uplift this system and enforce it and believe you have a voice. But it's all fake, and you can see it crumbling down now. Like everything that you work for every day, you built your life around your job. You watch your sports, your entertainment and all that, and at the flick of, at the snap of a finger, they all just shut that shit down. Because what you thought was important ain't important to them. What's important to them is power, absolute power, and keeping you directly dependent upon them. There is no independence. There is no independent thought. They provide everything for you. So no, America is nothing but Britain's child, youngest child. That's all it is. And America is nothing but a dumping place where countries dump goods off to be consumed. That's what America is.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of find the factors. And this is why I always say to people to go back to the research of understanding from the times of Queen Elizabeth I and understanding the corporate companies, how in its perspective, because a lot of people don't understand the Royal Charter, where the Royal Charter is able to give in the corporates the leeway to able to maneuver. So when you're seeing most of all the establishments in America itself, you just have to look at the names of places and looking at where they set up shop. So like, for instance, in Carolina, you will find that the British, they will set up shop in forms of manufacturing. But you see, this is how they were able to use the corporates to create in their new laws within the American system.
Well, British, from Barbados. Wait 1 second. Let me pull this up so I can be accurate real quick. Yeah, the South Carolina Charter was created by the British people that came up from Barbados that actually created that charter. So yeah, you're correct. You know, it's just you got to understand something. When they had when they actually had the war, the British, a lot of the slaves sided with Britain because they wanted to give them freedom. If they sided with them. And I always ask Richie about the slaves in the UK and in France, because I know France was the first one to outlaw slavery. And he always tell me you got like 5-6 generations of black people that's been there for so long. And I always wanted to know, like, what was slavery like there, or what is the mentality of the Negro in the UK and in France as opposed to here in the Caribbean and the Americas, because they had more freedom there than they actually had here.
Yeah, because you'll find, like, majority of the time, and that's why I said go back into Queen Elizabeth I, we'll find that most of the black people that when they got to the UK, they were more freer than they would be in Americas, because Americas is more, because it's an industrial business, it's that they will send their criminals as well as having slaves. Where in the UK, it was indirectly, they wouldn't say it, but there was a ban of slavery because of their system in the UK. Because if they had allowed slavery, then that would make their poor people, as in the European people, be put into the same category. So it was very difficult for them to actually say to having slaves. So what they would do is they will capitalize on islands and transfer the slaves to any island that they have control over.
Right. I'll say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we can spend hours talking about slavery, and a lot of us, we know the history.
Yeah.
We can talk about those things, but in 2020, one of the more pertinent questions that I asked myself, and I did a live stream last night, is because we're integrated, and you got black people with good jobs making good money here in America, in the UK, over in France, in places where you have our people, right? What I've noticed was the more education we get, the more integrated we get. The more integrated we get, the less proud of our culture and where we come from we understand. And so one would ask the question, well, George, why are you saying this? Well, let's break this down. Let's look at it from this aspect. The Chinese man is not asked to assimilate to the point where he loses his culture. He's not asked to do that. He's asked to come to America or the UK, get an education, and then do business with the corporate structure. So is the Indian man. And I'm gonna separate the African for a minute. I'm gonna just use the Negro people. And the reason, and I'm doing this for a reason, because, and I had this conversation with Richie too. I want to do this for a reason, because I want us to see the parallel, especially here in the Americas, or if you're in the UK. I mean, not the UK, the Caribbean. Slavery here was a stain. So what America, what the double society of America seek to do was import more Africans and replace the African Americans with the African. Why are they doing that? Because Tyrone on a corporate job still knows who he is, and he's seeking reparations based off of what happened to his people. When Ubuntu or Narubu come, he doesn't have that same problem with the U.S. government coming to America. You understand what I'm saying? So they draw these plans to keep us divided by placing us, moving us around, and moving and shaking in different places. So he'll put the Nigerian in the corporate job as opposed to Tyrone, because Tyrone still has an agenda with America. So now what I'm saying is, here in America, in the West, you can have a corporate job and still be proud and black, because they're going to call you angry. They're going to call you violent. You have to suppress all of that. You damn near have to get a white woman. You can't be in there proud standing strong with a black family, and don't be fooled by the bullshit actors and entertainers they show on TV. That's a charade. Most black men cannot be proud black men and stand on the shoulders of their ancestors in these corporate structures. They will replace you with another black person that look like you that doesn't come from the soil. And the reason why I'm saying that is here in the West, the more education we get, the more you have to die down to your ancestors, because America seeks to obliterate or do away with any type of history of slavery, to the point where they even stop teaching it in schools now. They no longer teach it in the schools. And this is why we can't awaken the minds of our people, because it's not being taught to them. And here in the West, you can't go to the corporate job wearing a Mary Bethune-McLeod shirt on. You can't have no dreadlocks in your head unless you're just a super, super important person. Other than that, you have an attitude problem. You're angry. You can't be unapologetically African. And this is why we can't advance. And most
No, that's a definite.
Yeah, go ahead, Richie.
No, finish your point.
And
I'm agreeing. That's a definite.
Most Africans that they allowing to come through today, not the ones during our parents' era, they're not coming through unapologetically African. They're coming through white friendly, because they learned from the Black Power movement of the 60s. We're not letting the rebel rousers come into America no more. We're gonna let the ones that's diametrically opposed to anything Black Power. So we can't come together, and the black people that's here, they can't be unapologetically African, because you won't advance.
That's a fact. I think we've talked about it many times about the education system. It comes with a socialization system, just like how being an athlete, or they all come with ways to socialize you into a different type of culture. I mean, I know me and you've spoken, as you said, George, about it, and I've told you that over the last few years here in the UK, there's been a massive effort to create this new paradigm of what it is to be British. Because obviously when people say English, that's a white person you're thinking of straight away. And now, because obviously you do have these cultures that are in UK, even though here we're a very small percentage, I think 2 to 5%, all the cultures make up of the entire populace. But they made a big thing about trying to redefine in people's head what it is to be British, and basically create a melting pot where you leave your culture somewhat at the door and adopt this group culture, where again, as we know, once you go into the world of business, schooling, higher education, higher sports realms and stuff, you're educated, but you're also socialized then to drop the cultural aspects of yourself.
But let me ask you though, Richie. In the UK, when our brothers and sisters come from the Caribbean to the UK, right? That's been in the Caribbean for the last 400 years. So they may not have a connection to Africa as much as maybe Terry would, because their family's been in the UK. Their family's been in the West, right? So we're African descent, but we've been in the West. So we leave the Caribbean and we come to the UK. And from what I heard, that there's a division between the Caribbean people and the Africans. Don't really hang together too much, right? Am I accurate on that?
That used to be the case, definitely from the older generations.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's kind of changed a lot now over time, but that was definitely the case.
That was the case. And,
going back a few years.
The reason why I'm saying that, but the Europeans did that. The Europeans did that because they knew that there was a difference in the way. In Africa has an African agenda with the European. But once they come to the UK, it's different. But if you are a person that's been living in the West, this is where you at. So our problem is with the people in the West that's been controlling us. So they use the African as the different type of black, as opposed, and they're the culprits in the middle that's divided. That's the division. So what I try to teach people is, wait a minute, I can't be who I am, but my Ivory Coast brother can. So now he's coming to America, he's making the best, he's achieving, But he doesn't realize that we're actually being played by the goddamn system. So the only way we're going to get back to any semblance of any thought of African mind is to understand how we're being played and how he uses us against each other. And in the West, the more we live in crime-ridden cities, right? For the most part, not all of us, but most of us live in crime-ridden cities. And if you say I want to get my son or my daughter out of this crime-ridden city, so you move out to the suburbs. But when you move out to the suburbs, your kids don't have black friends anymore. They don't carry the same thought process as you. Now you got to go to work every day to pay for those houses and those property taxes out in the suburbs. So you're not with your kids every day. So now by the time your kids come of age, they don't carry the same African thought process that you have. They got an integration to this way of thinking. So here in the West, like you just fucked because a lot of your African brothers and sisters don't want to join you. And when you do get an education, you trade that off for your blackness for the most part. And then when you move out to the suburbs, you totally lose it all. So what do you do? Right. What is it for the Negro to do?
It's crazy. Listen, and I think that's the one thing I do definitely agree with when you talk about the American situation, in the sense that because there's so many black people there, the ways that they have to go about to subjugate you, and obviously, as you pointed out, try to replace you even with other black people, whether it's from Africa or whatever, and they'll give them a better shot based on the fact that they're not coming with the known knowledge of slavery and things that's gone on, and an entitlement
that's not their
in
problem.
the American system.
That's not.
Say that again.
Because that's not them. But let me tell you though, I have a lot of African friends that I actually, I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia. And we got an area called Little Africa, right? So I was at the gym training with one of my friends, Alan, from the UK. From the Ivory Coast, and I was going in on these Africans, these Nigerians. They was out there talking about the white woman. I'm just super cooning, right? And and this is a true story, man. And my man Alan, he grabbed me by my shirt, not like, he grabbed me. He said, "Let me tell you something, man." He said, "Do you understand Africa?" And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I see the ones that's coming here today, as opposed to who came in the '80s." He said, in the Ivory Coast, they burn hospitals down. They out there fighting rebels, but they don't let them come to America. They don't let you see them. He said it's millions of Africans that think like y'all do, but they don't let them come to America. So we don't know, we don't understand. So the ones that's getting the green cards that's coming in today are not coming in unified. They're coming and joining the structure, getting the white women and man, you had a conversation because you alluded to some of that same thing that's happening over in the UK.
Yeah.
So it's just like we're just losing all of what once. It's like once they leave the continent, they just come in and just lose all the identity of what it is to be black.
Again, it's the narrative that's being pushed, isn't it? As far as being accepted into this new culture, you're encouraged to embrace it. And so again, a lot of people that come over to America, to England, they do things like go out with white women because they believe that's a status symbol, and somehow it will bring them in closer and create a status symbol basically for them. I think the only thing that saves England a little bit, big up to Sunray for that donation, big up for that. The only thing that's kind of slightly different here is that because England's small, and remember that the whole size of England is smaller than New York State, so we naturally have to travel in order to, feel like we've gone on holiday. And that is the biggest thing that I think keeps people in the UK a little bit more grounded as far as being connected to their African and Caribbean roots. Whereas in America, again, you guys have got such a big landmass.
It's lost.
You can, you could go to the other end of America, get your tropics, go skiing over in Colorado. I'm saying? So you're not really leaving that Americanized bubble, which again is a problem in itself because it narrows your viewpoint of the world. You know what I'm saying? In a lot of ways.
You know what happens in the West, here, especially here in America, when like if you guys well, let me just say this too, because me and Richie, we had these type of conversations all the time, especially on the phone. We have some epic conversations that I wish they was being recorded because when it gets to the air, it don't have the same magic. But we do. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm banging on Africa, because I'm not. We're having, this is a conversation based off of the experiences that happened. I love Africa, but if we want to talk about the history, I'm old enough to understand where I grew up in Southwest, the Liberians, the people from Ghana that was already in America that assimilated with African American people, went to school with us, had babies with us, everything, and then going into like the 90s and the 2000s, you start seeing the influx of a different type of Africans coming to America. And they didn't have that same, it was just different. It was a difference. And I think when I was growing up, Richie, if you was black, I don't care if you was from the UK or you was from Africa, when you was black, when you came in the hood, you was just black. Like, it wasn't really like we didn't really like, you know, as kids, we all bust on each other, African booty scratcher, you big head nigga, and all that kind of stuff. But when we was growing up, if you was black, you was just black. Like, we all hung on the block together. My friends was Jamaican, Haitian, African Americans. We was all niggas. But at some point that changed. It began to change. And when being a kid, the only thing I knew the difference was we just talked different. But we was all the same people. Where I grew up at.
No, facts.
Yeah. You know, the funniest thing is, it's like, even when we go into the perspective of this Brexit crap that they introduced, and if you understand the way they pull themselves away from Europe and able to say, gives them the obligation of creating their own laws where they don't have to comply to the European system. So these kind of things are where we have to be very careful of, in forms of creating an identity which removes you from your own personal cultural identity.
Yep. Yeah, well, I think the African American has the African American and the cat. Let me just put it this way. I ain't gonna tiptoe through the tools. I'm being too nice. Let me loosen up for a minute.
We can't be nice.
Come on, that's all. Go in, son.
Listen,
go
man.
in.
Listen. The Negro people that came over here on them slave ships and ones that was already here, man, are some great fucking people. First of all, they have the shortest slavery in the history of the world, and they influenced the world. You know, those Black Power movements that started up in Oakland and went into New York, and before the Black Power movements, Marcus Garvey coming from Jamaica into America, you know, we had some Booker T. Washington. You know, we had some people that had a global voice, man, that people looked at and emulated, man. And it pains me today when I see us, what we're going through today, knowing the greatness that we came from. You know, I don't know. You know, like a lot of the revolutions that kicked off around the world was watching what was going on in America and in the Caribbean. You know, from, like I said, from slavery, not just the Haitian Revolution, before the Haitian Revolution, all the rebellions, the wars that took place. You know, like I said, we had the shortest slavery because the people that came over on them ships and was already here didn't want to be enslaved. We had a will, we had a drive. All the inventions that moved the 21st century, you know, that came from the side from these Negro people. So the problem that I have is, I don't think, Terry, we understand the type of lineage that we come from. I don't think that we understand how special of a people we are. And like I said, I see myself as a different tribe. The same way you got a Yoruba people and Igbo people. You know, here in America, we are a tribe of people. We've been here 500 years. You know, and we're a special kind of people that actually influence the world. We're the type of people that when we do something, everybody else stop and look. But the problem is everybody else sees us in the West that way, but us in the West don't see ourselves that way. And that's why we can't advance forward. I feel like Africa, Mother Africa, is waiting for the Negroes in the West the 100 to 200 million Negroes in the West to finally turn around and look back at her, because we already influenced her. You know, from Brazil all the way up to Canada.
It's, as I said to you, it falls into that same system that I said earlier, in understanding who the British are and who are their children. And if I say the Americans are their children, then for Africa and Mother Africa, you have to understand the African diaspora are the children that need to come home. And it's not like you have to go to Africa, but it's able to say, okay, my mother's over there. So, you know, like how we, like in the Caribbean, where if you're in America, you send money through Western Union to your family in the Caribbean. It's the same format. We need to establish things so that we can able to do in that network. Same way the British deal with the Americans, where you've got Donald Trump and you've got Boris Johnson, because a lot of people don't realize that Boris Johnson didn't give up his citizenship till 2016 because he was an American citizen from New York.
But just think it. Oh, go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, so when you look at that perspective, we should use the same ideologies of how they interacted is how we as African diasporans need to work with the African people on land.
Well, the problem is, like FBA Nigel said, 1.6 billion waiting on 300 million. Well, I used to think that way too, but let me say this to you, brother Nigel. When you look at those people that was taken on them ships, and you look at what we survived, I mean, they're still trying to figure out from the eugenic society to the poison foods. Do you know from 1875 all the way to 1975, there was over 4,000 recorded hangings. That's like an average of 77 hangings a year of Negro people just in America alone, and that's just the reported. We're not even talking about what went on in the Caribbean. Hangings, I mean, just Jim Crow laws, black codes. We survived we triumphed and survived all of that stuff. We survived, like I said, the slavery, the toil. How many people died just during the Biafra? Period. They don't understand how we still here. And even during those times, we invented stuff like cortisone, the GPS, the freaking car engines, you know, the transmissions, the propeller for that they use for boats. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The things that we invented during the times when we wasn't even allowed at certain universities. I don't know if no other group would have been able to flourish up under those type of conditions that we did. So what they figured was the only way you can control that 300 million people is to take their mind, because their abilities to survive is unbelievable. Nobody understood it. See, the Indian Ocean slavery went on for like 700 years. Slavery over in the North Africa was like almost 2,000 years. Ours was like 248 years because we was kicking ass. You couldn't keep them maroon people enslaved. They wasn't having it. You couldn't keep. Go ahead.
No, and that's why I was going to say, in adding to that, is that if we put each forms of race into categories, you would understand that we are very special people, because if you put the Asians, as I call them replicators, because they always need something to replicate. The Europeans, you look at it in the perspective of the middlemen, they're always the ones that are always doing the deals in between. But one thing you will know about African people and African diasporans is that we are creatives. Yeah, we create something, but we're never able to finish it off because you have the middlemen and the replicators.
Yeah.
Disturbing the pattern and the chain. Definitely.
Exactly. Because we always start something. We create something, we put it into existence. Look, we create the internet, but they take it over.
Man, we created the first gigahertz.
I think that's the pattern of history. That's the pattern of history you're talking about there. Mm-hmm. We are the mothers and fathers of this thing, positive and negative, as I always say. So whatever the situation, we are going to create. That's where we're the coal, and under that pressure, you're getting diamonds. This is what happens. You know what I'm saying? I believe, again, this is epigenetics. This is where your environment starts to affect and shape. And again, it kicks and stirs up that DNA memory that, as we've talked about, the white man's done so hard, worked so hard, and the Asian man's worked so hard to drum out of us. You can't take out that DNA memory. So there's certain things that we just naturally kick into. And that, I mean, in the UK, definitely we're creators and we have done throughout time, whether it's music, acting, inventions, and all sorts of areas. The one thing I will say though about, again, the UK, we've been thinned out a lot through gentrification and various things. I mean, the average white person lives a lot closer to a the average black person lives a lot closer to a white person on standard, whereas in America, you guys still have whole cities of black people, whole neighborhoods of black people, solidly populated. And again, I think that's why some of your laws, i.e. Jim Crow and other things they're doing up until today, are certain time a lot harsher based on the numbers again, and the fact that you've got densely populated all black areas.
Well, our laws here was a lot harsher because you gotta understand something, man. Let's just deal with Jamaica for a minute, right? And let's deal with the first Maroon conflicts and wars. I mean, we talking about conflicts there during that whole area from 1655 all the way to 1740. The Tacky War, the Baptiste War, all the rebellions that was going on, all from Haiti throughout Jamaica and all the islands that was there. Like, it was always constant war. See, the European got to tell their side of the story. We talking about Fort Negro, the Negro Fort down in Florida. We're talking about the Seminole Wars, from then to 1870 to 1858. We gang war, but they lead you to believe we just on some plantations singing and just picking cotton. No, we stabbing, fighting, shooting, running away. They couldn't hold you. So, and mind you, we was producing way more babies than them too. You got the Gold Coast Rebellion, Charles Dessalines. We was kicking ass. The New York Conspiracy. So slavery ended because the same way we fight now in gang war, we was gang war then. You couldn't stop these niggas. The problem is, but all you gotta do is research the history. We was whipping their ass. And the problem was, when you got groups of children that's born into slavery and all they know is slavery, it's hard, but a lot of them still got their fighting spirit. So we got the fighting spirit and the inventive spirit. The problem is we've lost our mind. We don't have our minds to say, I'm not, you know what, man, I fucked it. I'm LeBron James, man. I'm not playing for y'all no more, man. All y'all come on with me, man. Listen, we want to own half the league because we ain't playing. We don't have that type of mindset. They control us in fear now. We still got the inventive spirit. We still born with that DNA. And we still fight, but now we just do it amongst each other. But if you look at Jamaica, you study the history of Jamaica, you study the German coast, like I said, the German coast uprising. I mean, it's just so many uprisings. You're gonna see, man, we was gangbanging Bloods and Crips against them at one point. The Stoner Rebellion in South Carolina, when they stopped importing African slaves for like 10 years. So I don't think that we really know or understand like who we are in the West and where we came from, and what we did, how we got the freedom, and then we got the freedom. We actually forced their hands through bus boycotts, marches. People think that I hear a lot of dumbass people say, well, Dr. King was soft or the civil rights movement was soft. You punk nigger bros would not have the heart to march in Selma, Alabama with dogs and hoses sicked on you to do what our grandparents and great-grandparents did. So shut the hell up. When you talk about the ancestors dropped the ball, it's because they got dogs, they got their breasts bitten by dogs. Your ass can go to college and become a coon. It's because of them your ass can marry a white woman and don't get hung from a tree. So you can never say they dropped the ball. They They actually went and got hung from trees so your ass can marry a white woman.
You know, and you know, in looking at that, you know, even when you look at even in that precise time, if you go back into time and just before the Asian War, you would see, like what I always say to people, to go and check up the Somerset case, because that Somerset case, we defeated them in their own court of law, where we allowed, where the black man himself able to gain his own freedom through that Somerset case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we wasn't greatly outnumbered. We was definitely outgunned. But I'm gonna tell you, Dr. Will, most people don't even understand, black people don't even understand, Dr. Will, that we actually won those wars. We actually won. You know why we won? Because we still here. We still here to tell our story. And we still inventing. The problem is we actually control a lot that we don't even understand. They control your desires and your mind. But we're still the ones inventing every goddamn thing. We're still the ones in the lab. We're still the ones in school. We're doing all these type of things. Yeah, nonviolent wasn't smart. You needed both. You needed violent and nonviolent. The problem is we don't understand. We no longer understand who we are, and we no longer understand the greatness. Like if you walk through the UK right now, Terry and Richie, and you seen people from Jamaica, Barbados, and Trinidad, and you ask them if they knew who Nanny the Maroons was, would they even know?
Nope.
See how problematic that is?
Definitely. You know, look, if you don't, I always say for the black excellence that we all know that we have inside of us, and that intelligence and inventive, creative skill to come to the surface, there has to be a foundation of morals and knowing oneself. That's from family to you having a moral and code system to how you deal with each other. I always say, even with this reparations conversation, they can give us £1 billion tomorrow and 1 billion guns tomorrow, but if you're not in your right mind and you as George said, you're just a consumer and all your desires and wants are tied up in what they provide to you, the fight won't last no more than 2 minutes. The black excellence will never come to the surface properly. That's something I think that we're missing a lot of the time, because we have conversations about economic power and, you know, different things that black people should be doing, which are right and exact, no long thing. But if there's no moral system, if there's no true knowing of yourself and your history, when those resources come about, there will be a problem. You understand? Because nobody will have any roadmap other than what we've been provided in this modern day system to deal with each other. And that is an unsustainable system. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think like Eric B. Quasey said, during the transatlantic slavery, they brought some of the most intelligent, brilliant minds from Africa to America. So I'll say this, Eric B. Quasey, if I came to your house to rob you, I will take the best of everything you have. Other than that, would be no point in me coming there. So when the Arabs and you had the African tribalism fight, and some of our Arab tribes was taking on Islam and capturing our people, you know, some of the best was sold. Because you got to remember, they had slavery already in Africa. They had plantations in Africa. It's something that people don't tell you. It was plantations already there. So when they were selling the Negroes, they had a slave manifest where they were selling you based off of what you got to do. That's something that people don't know. Like, you was being sold for money based off of the skill set that you had. They had already knew who you was.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you go to the mid-Sahara slave route. And this is where a lot of people don't realize, this is where they found a whole heap of African people in India, because at that time when the Arabs were doing it, they were controlling on the terms of the Silk Road, because the Silk Road was where the investments were before even slavery. So when you look at that, you would realize that they needed people on their skill set to able to maintain in that Silk Road, because they couldn't deal with it on their own perspective. They needed our skill sets to make that Silk Road thrive.
Yeah, that was
As always.
well. I mean, and then you had the trans-Saharan slave trade, with the Canadian Empire. So that was moving around. So you had slavery was more complex than what people understand it to be. And maybe we do another live stream. I can have all my notes in front of me, and maybe I can share my screen and we can break that down and understand, like actually how we got here and who was complicit with it, from the Fulani people to the Hausa people.
I can even break that down for a little bit for you in the perspective of looking at even how the British had their involvement in that perspective. Because a lot of people they dismiss this and they don't really look at the perspective of it. Because when you look at the times of the Arab slave trade, it restricted Europeans from maneuvering. This is why the age of discovery came about. So when you look at where the British were still trying to find their way, because remember the leaders at that time were the Dutch, the French, these people, Napoleon period, they didn't have no strength, and the Spanish were overriding them. So when you look at what the British were doing in forms of making the alliances, because before the discovery, the British knew that if they went into certain African countries or went into Arab countries, they would be made of slaves themselves. So they had to find a form of treaty to making things work out for them. And at that time and that period is the Ottoman Empire. And with that Ottoman Empire, they had to find a leeway through Islam, which was that they had to work somewhere or work with some people, which were the Moroccans, as we know today. So there was a treaty there was a treaty between the British and the Moroccans, which if you go and do your research and check up the Burberry Company. The Burberry Company is B-A-R-B-A-R-Y.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that deal that they had, and it's funny in saying that deal that they did for them to get the Moroccans to get in new technology, they had to do some form of deal. And that deal gave the British the obligations to able to go into certain African countries and Arab places by giving them new technology, which is guns.
Yeah. But I'm gonna get maybe True Story or somebody to come, because I want somebody, or maybe somebody from the west, from over there. I want somebody to break down this the Canaan Empire. That was the longest running, probably the biggest empire in Africa.
Yeah.
And they ran the sub-Saharan slave trade, and you couldn't even get through there. Like a lot of they was kicking the Arabs' ass, and a lot of them embraced Islam. But those pale Arabs they was whipping ass. It took a long time to get rid of the Canaan Empire and the impact that they actually had, because they was the ones that defeated the Fulanis too.
Yeah, and just a quick one on that one is my main point on that was that a lot of people dismissed, because the Moroccans at that period of time were envy over the Mali period, when they had full control. And the only way the Moroccans could get into West Africa was through that empire, right? But they couldn't get through that empire, which in reasons why they needed to get guns.
Yeah, well, the Canaan Empire had guns. They was trading guns with the Arabs at the time. That's what I said. See, like the Europeans get to tell the story, but they don't tell the truth of the story. Because you had some empires that was whooping ass, and really the Europeans really didn't get a strong hold of foot almost all the way out until like the 1900s, damn near. Those empires was whipping ass in West Africa. But when we talk about the Fulani people and the Hausa people and the fights with the Mandingos, that's a different story. And just when you get these different groups that came to America, I just if we bring it back to the topic, I just look at us like, this is just my opinion. I don't think that we should trust the government. What I think we should do is fight to compete with the government, so we won't be so vulnerable to the government.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we should. But as Negro people here in the West, we ain't got no business trusting the government. The problem that we got is, man, me and Richie, I'm telling you, me and Richie, Terry, you be missing these arguments we be having, but we be having some epic joints on the phone. Epic joints. Because I always say, being a slave in North America was probably the worst place to be a slave. And I think Richie coming around to understanding my point now, but we used to go to war off that. And the reason why I said that, because if I was a slave in, say if I was a slave in not Ivory Coast, if I was a slave in Costa Rica, or I was a slave in Panama, or a slave in Jamaica, these are poor countries, Terry, where everybody's trying to run from there to get to America because they've been conditioned in their mind to believe that America is the place of milk and honey.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a slave here, other people that look like you will come here and look at you like you crazy. Nigga, you got a car. You live in a house with 3 bedrooms. Nigga, I live in a shanty. But he don't understand the politics of America. Here, with your house and your car, you're still at the bottom of everything. And when you come here, the Europeans allow you to come here so they can replace you with the ones that was here. So if you're a slave in America, which is supposed to be the land of milk and honey, where you're really in debt and you don't have no money, it's even worse. Because psychologically, you really believe that you're something that you're not. But at least if I'm in Jamaica, I know I'm poor. Here, they set the illusion of inclusion, which is not real. So it's a psychological thing. So if I come from Bermuda, or I come over from St. Paul, and I come to America and I go see my cousin, and he got a three bedroom home, I'm like, damn, this nigga living it up. So it's a psychological thing of what they did to the minds here. And then if you notice, the slaves that was took to the Caribbean still have a strong affinity or a connection towards Africa, as opposed to the ones that came to North America. They don't have the same. Mm-hmm. And you have to ask the question why.
Well, I think that again, there's the same thing being in England. You're closer to the beast, innit? So your culture suffers for that. You have to acclimate and change up everything a lot more. Whereas when you're coming from the Caribbean, again, one, the people that were being sent there were rebellious and they weren't having it. Two, they also had their own culture there, which was a little bit more, I'm going to say, black to begin with. So that helps. You know what I'm saying? That's a major thing. But I wanted to say something as well to the sister that's talking. She says the relationship between ADOS and Africa changed. Was when Nigerians that of descendants of the people that sold us started coming here with the entitlement. And they tried to insult us. Now I want to just say this before you say something, George, because I want to say something and I'm going to ask you a question, George.
Yes.
One thing I will say, I totally hear where that's coming from, and we kind of touched on that about immigrants.
We talked about it on the phone.
Coming over with a certain attitude, you know, and going on like they're entitled or whatever the such. But within that, the ADOS movement, George knows my opinion on this, I believe was created as a divisive maneuver to separate diasporan black people, especially Americans, from Africa.
Yeah. Let me jump in.
There's two different things going on. Yeah, so that's why I wanted to ask you, George. Speak on the ADOS thing and speak to the sisters.
I'm gonna explain this. I agree. I don't like the ADOS thing, but I'm gonna say this. What she's saying is absolutely correct. You know what it speaks to? Remember about 30 minutes ago when I said I don't have a problem with Africans. When I was growing up as a kid, like I'll be 45. When I was growing up as a kid, right, Terry, in Southwest Philadelphia, my friends was African Americans, Jamaican, and African. Only thing was difference was, you know, kids always, you African booty scratcher, you this, we bust on each other as kids. But the only thing was different with us was we just talked different. But we all lived in the same hood together. Some of my first girlfriends was from Liberia. What happened was sometime around about 20 years ago, not the Yorubas, because see, I'm gonna tell you what's weird. and I had to learn the politics of Africa. A lot of the Yorubas would come over and be right with us in the bar with you chilling. It was the Igbo and the houses. They come over but I didn't know what happened was as African Americans, we didn't know the politics of Africa or who sold who or who looked at you some way. They knew who we were, but we just looked at them as Africans and y'all are brothers. Come over and chill with us. But the relationships changed around like the early 2000s as opposed to when I was a kid. So a lot of my friends to this day are still African, but that's why I told you. What happened was we don't have the conversations enough. Like my friend from the Ivory Coast, Alan, the one I'm gonna actually bring him on the channel. We talk all the time, man. And he tell me he don't like Igbo people, and I asked him why, and he talks about
the Biafran War. The Biafran War.
Yeah, well, he's from the Ivory Coast, so now he's educating me on something that I don't know, Terry. You know, and so I'm listening to my brother, and when he came to America, he hang with all the brothers. He talked like us, chill like us, and he said, well, listen, he explains to us the wars that went on in West Africa, and as African Americans, we don't understand how they got certain agendas with each other, depending on the tribes. We don't know nothing about that. So some Africans will come here and fall right in line with some African Americans. Some Africans will come here and don't like African Americans. Mm-hmm. But that's something that I had to learn. So now ADOS was created out of that because we was growing up. We never had no problems with Africans. When I grew up as a kid in the 80s, we had the red, black, and green medallions. Everything was about free Mandela. Everything was about Africa.
Yeah, as one people.
Yeah, everything was. When I was a kid growing up, I know it. I lived it. Now we bust on Africans and they bust on us, and we did that, but we still was always taught to love Africa. The ADO stuff or the hatred towards certain Africans didn't start until about 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's like a new thing. Because not all, some of the Africans was coming here, marrying white women, turning their nose up at us and not messing with the African Americans. That's where that started from. But I wouldn't put that indictment on every single African because it's not every African.
Because, you know, in looking at that perspective and where a lot of people, as I said, going back into the past, is even with Nigeria itself. Nigeria was sold off. If you look into our archives, you'll see where I kind of showed a little bit of information on that. In that, when Nigeria was in a predicament, which got sold off to a company which is called Unilever.
Okay.
Unilever, you know the company now that we have that you might see as a product company called Share Moisture. Yes. You might have heard of it. Share Moisture is owned by Unilever. Unilever was a product company where they needed palm oil because what a lot of people don't.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, they bought Nigeria in a whole nutshell. So in understanding the mindset of control of where the Europeans were able to create the division, because Nigeria isn't really there's no really such place called Nigeria, but right. It's just where they've put the three main tribes into one hot pot.
Let me ask you real quick then. Let me put this part in, because he was telling me that the reason why people don't like the Fulani and Hausa, because a lot of the Hausa people in the north that got all the money, their family's been there since slavery. Those was the ones that was actually in cahoots with the Arabs and the Europeans, and those descendants of families are still in power. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, like, he was breaking down the difference between the Yoruba, the Igbo, and the Hausa. Because I studied some of this, but I'm actually talking to an African now that's only been here 7 years that know the politics. Mm-hmm. So, and I was intrigued. I'm listening, like, damn, like, because he was actually explaining to me what was going on. And the problem is, as African Americans, we don't really have these type of intellectual conversations.
Okay. Yeah. So looking at that perspective, let's use Nigeria as the example.
Yeah.
Now, for you to able to even understand the Hausas were peaceful people, but they came under the regime of Islam. And how they came under that regime is that we've got to look at who was transporting Islam at that time period, which was the Fulanis.
Yes.
Now, the Fulanis came into Nigeria, which was that they had to to manipulate their houses as much as possible. So if you look into the wars in the times of when they took over the capital of the Hausa people in Nigeria, in Nigeria at the time, which is a place called Sokoto, which is a place where the Fulanis had to infiltrate into their kingdom, into their royal family, and migrated with the Hausas to overcome the Hausas. But what you understand is with the Hausas, they were the military.
Yes.
So of course they've got the guns, they've got the weapons, and they're moving in the name of Islam. The Yorubas were neutral, but you have to look at the wars, which in that time is the war in what they call Ilorin. Ilorin is the place where the Yorubas and the Hausas were having a war. And this is where you will find out that some of the Yorubas that are Muslim today are converts from that war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they what at what point they joined together to actually take down the Mandingos, the Fulani Jihads, when the Mandingos was running everything, was kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah, so you will find that when you look at Yoruba people, you will find that some of them are Muslims and some of them are Christians. Because remember, the Portuguese were supplying guns from the south, so they had to find a resolution. And this is when the British came in. They looked at who was the dominant force, and they knew that the Hausas were dominant because they couldn't really fight them because they were too military.
There was too many of them too.
So what happened is that they made them out of the three main groups as the leadership, knowing it's going to be a hot pot. But the real resources of the money, which is the oil, is coming from the Igbo people in that region. So the houses, while they were dominant, they even made pipelines from the south all the way to the north. So you kind of see the contradictions on each side, where it's already there is a political power force where they have a dislike because the houses don't give a damn about the Igbos. The Igbos are angry against the houses because they're not providing what they should provide because the oil resources is coming from them. And that's where the Biafran War came about.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot when you're dealing with what happened, during those times and what it is that we should be doing now. I really think that our people, we're done a disservice because we don't know our history, so we don't have a frame of reference of our greatness and what we should be emulating. So what we do is we emulate white people. We go get Tom Ford suits and all of that kind of stuff. We want to get Gucci, and we want to be Fendi and Louis up and wear the jewelry that's actually taken from poor countries, and put it on our bodies, and we want to do all that kind of stuff because we don't have a frame of reference of the greatness that we come from. That's just what it is, man. Like, I'm with you, K. At least I understand. I just my thing is I don't I understand the ADOS thing. I don't have a problem per se with ADOS. I got a problem with the people that's in control of ADOS. That's my problem. But I don't want to make it about ADOS. I just think that we need a more historical reference as to who we are in the West. Like I feel like 1804 should be a national holiday for all Black people in the West. I feel like Juneteenth should be a national holiday for all people in the West. But we don't have that frame of reference, man. We don't have it. And then we got way too many Black sellouts that are here to say that and say and tell me I'm wrong. We shouldn't do it at the behest of white people in order to keep their positions.
Yeah, and that's why I always say that we have to look at the bigger picture, because if you look at everything that we've been kind of talking about, you can see where all the divisions are being created. And when you find out who are the leaders of these divisions, it goes all the way back to that European man, where they keep on making us divided so that they're able to apply what they need to get out of us.
Yeah. Yep. And we don't, because I'm gonna tell you, if we celebrated 1804 like we do 4th of July and Juneteenth, a small kid, my son, Richie's son, to say, Dad, what is Juneteenth? What is 1804? And then you will have to explain it to them. And,
Right.
then they will go look it up. And then they will emulate them instead of emulating a white man named Superman. Or waiting for some fat white man to come down the chimney and bring him a goddamn toy. So instead of him having the Mahatma Gandhi spirit of always nonviolent who didn't like black people, he should have a Shaka Zulu spirit. But he don't have a Shaka Zulu spirit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He don't have a Paul Cuffey spirit. You know, he don't have the spirit. He don't have a Ida B. Wells spirit. He just don't have it. He don't have a Kwame Nkrumah spirit. You know.
And let me say this quickly. The people that George is mentioning ties back into the theme of the show, because these people are leaders and they're also challengers of government or powers that be. So again, it's about having that mind state, as George is saying, of people who at the right time will know that this shit ain't right and something's got to change, or something has to be questioned, or I have to take it upon myself to lead my people and do something, or lead at least by example. You understand? Sorry, George, to cut you. Go.
Yeah, and Dollar Will said we can make it a holiday like we did Martin Luther King Day before it was legal. I agree, but it has to be a collective push. The same way we push this collectively. So I'm gonna tell you what ADOS would have worked. Something like ADOS and CARICOM in the Caribbean would have worked, right? Had they would have came together. But the problem that you have is you got way too many people in CARICOM that think they British, that love the white folks. Down there with the bleaching cream, you got way too many Negroes here in America that love them white folks. They love them butter biscuits, and they don't. They right there. They don't want to be for the people, because all ADOS and CARICOM had to do was come together and say, you know what, man, there's been some differences. We fell back since Stokely Carmichael came up from Trinidad and painted the coin Black Power. So now we know that Stokely Carmichael could come from Trinidad and fall right in line with African Americans, with his people, and say Black Power. How the fuck did we get to the point where we got a CARICOM and the ADOS? Something's wrong, because the grandfathers left the goddamn roadmap. So it ain't something that they was doing. It's something that happened to us. So now if ADOS and CARICOM can get together and say, listen, fuck all the differences. We're the people of the rice plantations. We're the people of the sugar plantations. We're the people of the cotton plantations. What we got to do is take these holidays and make these national holidays, and we got to support them.
Yeah.
And we want to support them through CARICOM, support them through ADOS. But the problem was, it's not the people. It's not the people like K-Elise. K-Elise is not the problem. It's the fucking leadership of both of those organizations that can't be trusted. Because if I know this, how come they don't know this?
Mm-hmm. And that's where I was saying in the fact of our people's sheep, because you know what? If we actually want to make a holiday date, we can actually do this. In the fact that we say this is our day and we celebrate that day, and we all take our time out to say, you know what, we're celebrating that day. The government have no obligation not to stop. They can't stop something that we make our day.
Mm-hmm. And just think of this, right? If black people all throughout the Caribbean and America said, okay, we're gonna make 1804 our holiday, and somebody said, well, that's the first time that blacks, and watch this, right? They say that's the first time that blacks that was brought here got their freedom. And some of us will say, well, we wasn't slaves, we was already here. But guess what? Those ones that was already here and the ones was already intermarried, mixed, sold, brought, and all them sugar plantations together. That was the first time people come and got their freedom. So we identify with that. We shouldn't celebrate 4th of July. We should celebrate Juneteenth in 1804. And we're going to use CARICOM and ADOS to enforce it and teach it to the people. How come they didn't do that? See what I'm saying? See, that would have been something that could have went across the Caribbean and America. But what I'm telling you is, we've been the same way we were sold out and led astray to even get here. Because y'all better look at some of the wars and how Your Akan people got to Jamaica, and some of them got down there to Brazil. You better look at the Delhome people and the Delhome wars. You better study. Everybody African wasn't on your side. Now they may not have known what the outcome was going to be, but man, you still whooped my ass, or sided with the enemy. So I just think that I just think that we got to start being more creative in our thinking, man. And I've been saying this for years. I'm not Haitian. I wasn't born in Haiti, but Haiti is a representation of my ancestors because of where we come from and what we experienced. So is the Stolen Rebellion. So is the New York Conspiracy. So is the Gullah Wars, the Seminole Wars, the Blackfoot Wars, the Yamasee Wars. All of that stuff is a part of me. Antonio Maceo of Cuba. That's all me.
Right. Facts. And let me say this as well. Again, if you don't understand the global positioning that and importance that Africa and South America and these places have globally, that in itself is knowledge that you're missing out on, that every white person knows, and they're using against you. And again, when it comes to trusting the government, if you don't know where they're getting their resources, how they do business, then this is where you can be misled. You can be led to not know your power and your own personal sovereignty, which is what we're talking about as well. Knowing your own sovereignty, knowing what you're about. And again, that in turn allows you to problem solve when you're presented with proposals from your government. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, see, highlight that for me, Richie, what Eric B. Quasey said, 1804. I want to speak to that, if you can highlight it.
Oh, I can't right now. Terry's got that because Terry's got to come back in. Okay. 1804 happened in Haiti, and Yvette Carnell wants nothing to do with Haiti, Jamaica, or Africa.
Well, let me. I'm explain it from this aspect, and I'm explain how you use propaganda to your advantage. I'm gonna do this for a minute. I'm gonna take this angle for a minute, Eric B. Just stay with me. Okay. Yvette Carnell, you're right. I understand the argument. I understand that a lot of these Africans today, not 20 and 30 years ago, but today, are coming here turning their nose up at us and reaping the benefits of what we fought for. I agree with that, right? But if we're smart and we're using our brains and using proper propaganda, if you actually want to galvanize the Negroes of the West, you got to use certain strategies. So now if you take that holiday and make it a national holiday, and we'll start to look at each other a certain way now because we'll start to see the relevance in each other, and we'll start to understand who we were. We'll start to understand that there was a Haitian that discovered Chicago. We'll start to understand who we are. So a lot of people from the Caribbean today, not Marcus Garvey in the era, not Stokely Carmichael in the era. They didn't come here and thumb their nose up at us. It's the ones in the last 20 years. So I understand the ADO's rhetoric. Whether I agree with it or not, I understand where it comes from. So for me, the way you combat that is you use strategies of propaganda and psychological conditioning. So you take something like 1804, and then you take Juneteenth, and you make those national holidays where Caribbean and African Americans alike celebrate those holidays. Well, now we'll start to respect each other and begin to understand each other. So now it's easy for me to say, hey, I support CARICOMs in their fight for reparations. You know what? I support the Americans in their fight for reparations. Brother, I understand your plight now. See, because Stokely Carmichael understood the plight of an H. Rap Brown when he came to America. That's why he had no problem getting up on the podium and saying black power, power to the people. And he stood with the African Americans, even though he came from Trinidad. Because they understood the propaganda and they used it to their advantage to further galvanize the people. We're not using our intelligence no more.
Right. Facts. Facts. And even on the reparations one, me and George have talked about this again. I always said that there should have been a global, handing in. If you're bringing this reparations claim, it should have been a global claim, meaning that everybody in their individual countries, England, their reparation claim, West Indies, their reparation claim, Americas, should have been filed at the same time. Whether or not there's different laws to deal with it, different systems, whatever, there should have been that joint filing of that complaint. So again, it breeds solidarity. It breeds us all being on one page. Earlier, someone was talking about what sovereignty can we learn from Britain. I was literally talking about our own individual sovereignty when it comes to decision making and analyzing a situation. Because again, today's current government is about nannying you. It's about taking away your decisions, taking away your problem solving skills, and providing you with prefixed, pre-packaged, pre-wrapped up answers and pathways to go. So again, when I'm talking about sovereignty, when I'm saying it, my meaning by that, when I'm talking about individual sovereignty, is you having the mind state and the know-how of yourself, your lineage, and just practical problem solving skills in your everyday life, and enough of a bubble. And I say a bubble because most people, again, they're working, they're under stress, they're under bills. So again, your problem solving skills are compromised when when we're sitting down and we're talking about the government offering vaccines or putting up 5G or whatever the case may be. These conversations are severely minimalized because all of us are under this usual situation of running back to our life and our jobs and our bills and our kids and whatever. So again, we're not encouraged to think about these things, and we're almost demonized a lot of the time when we open these discussions in modern day society, because again, the government has been structured to present you with stuff, and you're supposed to just take it willingly and go on about your business. You know what I'm saying? And again, all this conversation we've been having about ADOS, about CARICOM, about attitudes of black people across the diaspora, all speaks to, again, how you view your government, or how you view your colonizer or your oppressor, because these are all titles that are appropriate for the governments that we find ourselves under. So again, that all has to be considered and taken into consideration when we're
Yeah.
talking.
And what happens is that's why when I sit back and me being a product of both from the Caribbean and African American, I can see it from both sides. And hold on for a second. Yeah, I'm live.
Yo, big up to everybody who's tuning in right now. I see some new people I haven't seen. I see some old friends. Big up D Red for coming over and supporting the channel. Big up Miss Taylor, Maid, and
Frederick,
your comments and your interactions.
you got
Yeah,
Frederick.
everybody, if you haven't done it already, like, share, subscribe, put the word out. It's been a good conversation with our brother George Macon.
Yeah,
Still there, Terry?
I'm back now. I'm back. That was my brother calling me. But I
Okay.
want to say this. I want to say oh, that's the information, man. Yeah, I want to say he says we who in the Caribbean move closer to African traditional practice. Yes, that's true. Than the international countries, y'all more book educated about Africa. That's true. In America, so you have more institutions here. But we do choose but we does more practice the traditions like voodoo. I agree with that. When voodoo here is looked at as like you crazy. So I understand that. I understand, and I believe. See, for me, I'm a strategist, and I like to use propaganda because all propaganda ain't bad propaganda. That's why I said you got to take those. It starts. You take those holidays and you begin to celebrate. Because see, you got to understand something. As opposed to in the Caribbean, in America, we live in the communities together. So just think of this, Richie. Well, Terry, you come to the States more. Just think of this, Terry, up in New York, in Brooklyn. If 1804 was a national holiday for black people, Just think of all the different black people that live in Brooklyn will be out in the street celebrating together. What that would do psychologically. That's what you know.
And it's funny saying that because when we was in New Orleans, they created a day in because I'm moving with this queen from Congo, Queen Diambi. What you will find is that in New Orleans they made a Queen Diambi Day, the 25th of April, and these are the kind of things that we need that we utilize these days to celebrate not just that person, but the achievements of what we can do and what we have done.
Yeah. Let's see, if you have in Brooklyn, Bushwick, a bunch of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Flatbush, all those areas of Brooklyn, right? Where you got all the different groups, right? Just imagine, I mean, Brooklyn, 3 million people, damn near. Then you take a city like Philadelphia. They say 1.6, but it's like 1.8 million people here, 900,000 black people. I mean, black people from everywhere, African Americans, Jamaicans, everybody. And we celebrating Juneteenth in one season, and then another season we got 4th of July. You got all of us out there together with our flags, walking together. But we are walking together under the consciousness of this is when our people, the word our people, got free. The first line of our people. See, we don't understand what propaganda is. We think propaganda is bad. No. Propaganda is good when used in the right way. So you have to use propaganda to re-socially engineer your people from what they've been socially engineered to believe. So if you use those and you bring the ADOS and CARICOM together, now we say we have a global reparations fight based off the jurisdictions that we come from, and we support each other because we use 1804, Juneteenth, and the different. Because see, you know what happened, Terry? It goes from that to everything else that we miss that we should be celebrating. Because the first thing a brother like Richard asked, well, we celebrate 1804. What about Nanny and the Maroons? Well, what about the Tacky War? Well, what about when Paul Cuffey did this? Or what about that? Now you start searching into every damn thing. Now you're unstoppable. You have to learn to use propaganda to galvanize the people, because you got to create another mental matrix within the matrix that they already living in. If you don't, none of it's going to work. So what happens if you have 1804 or Juneteenth is a national holiday, and that day everybody shop at black owned stores or just something that you have. You have to start putting those things in the mind, because we celebrate 4th of July like it's nothing. But just think of this. How in the world we celebrate 4th of July and we were still goddamn slaves in 1777? See the dumb shit? That literally makes no sense. But let me take this call. Somebody call me. I'll take over.
I think one of the things in America that I think was a major loss when it came to culture, American culture, as well as showing a clear link back to Africa, was New Orleans. When they put that place underwater and they, tried to disrupt those carnivals and the people there, they might not have, they're dirt poor there, but the culture that comes out of that place, the Mardi Gras, the costumes, that to me was always very amazing to look at, and that's still on my hit list. I need to attend. Riggsy went there last year. Was you there for Mardi Gras?
No, I was there for the jazz festival.
That's it.
And you see, when you see even how New Orleans is, even the French oppressors, you see
right
where the French accomplished in Africa, and then you look into New Orleans, you can see the aspect of the type of African people. That's why you have a place where they call the Congo Square, because the French accomplished their mission in Congo. So now they transferred what they had over there to New Orleans.
And a lot of a lot of Haitians flooded after the war, flooded into New Orleans too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You been to Mardi Gras, George?
No,
That's definitely something I would
I never
love
been
to
to New
see.
Orleans before. I want to know where Eric B. Quasi is from. What city he come from? What's up, Sir Drop TV? Yeah, I put the link in my community tab. So,
That's all. Big
hey,
up,
make
big up.
sure, hey, my people that's coming over from the channel, make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe, man, and hit that bell. This is my partner here, man. These my partners here, man. So hit that.
That's
This Richie, Richie, Black Ice TV and Terry, man. So make sure y'all hit that bell, man, when y'all coming on the way out too.
Yeah.
That's all.
USA link up, as you can see, and we're trying to find the common denominator, as you see in the title, and it's understanding all that what we've been talking about, the past and that form of present. So when we look into that, when we project ourselves into that future, do we actually need to trust that government, or can we even trust that government of their past?
Hey, Donald Wells said he has a trading. So you grew up in Los Angeles about 4 or 5 years. Then I moved to North Carolina. I spent most of my years in North Carolina, but I have been. Well, see, it's different if you grew up in K-Airbnb in Philly, in like New York City, something like that, because we went to school with. I went to school with Africans. You know, one of my first girlfriends was a big booty black girl from Ghana. So yeah, but she was Americanized. They was just black people. You know what I mean? Her mom sat out on the porch with the ladies back in the day, like everybody else did in the summertime.
And you know, it's funny where you see this is why our spirits always keep on fighting, because when you actually look at the roots of our spirit, whether we like it or not, that African spirit thrives right through, you know, in everything we do. So, you know, even as I was saying about, even when you look at them, Haiti is a population of a whole heap of people from Central to West Africa in one place. And they carried every single tradition to putting it all together, whether they were Christian, Muslim, Orishas, you name it, they put it all into one box.
Well,
and give them that strength.
I'm gonna tell you, patience court hell in America. See, let me. Somebody hit that right real quick. Kwame Matu Amarat. They said I thought George Macon was Aboriginal. Watch this. Highlight that, Terry. I'm gonna break that down real quick.
What was it? What was his name?
It's right under Black Ice TV. His name is the Kwame Matu Amarat.
That one.
Yeah, and that says I thought George Macon was Aboriginal. Now, Richie.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, or is the African indigenous to the planet?
Most definitely.
I mean, we can go all the way across the Melanated Islands, and you're going to see Africans there with spears, bones in their nose, building stuff. They right there, and this group's the Austronesians was committing genocide on them. They've been there for over 60,000 years. They tell you that they're Africans. You go into the Solomon Islands and all those different places, right? You go into Southeast Asia and you see the Negritos in the mountain yards, right? But for some reason, you see all these black faces in all these other places. You even had a brother on here yesterday that told you about the African presence in Europe, way before Western teachings, right? He was just on here yesterday. But
right.
For some reason, black people created astronomy, pyramids, alchemy, but no fucking boats to travel. And we let the Europeans really tell us that. Man, we was on every continent before anybody.
That's all.
We was already here. So I'm just not Aboriginal. I'm indigenous to the planet. So we are Africans. The thing is, Africans was always everywhere. See, I am indigenous. I am Aboriginal, but I never said I wasn't African. See, I was never one of those guys that shitted on that fuck Africa. No, I ain't with all that's to me. That's just dumb. Because you can go into India, you can go into Yemen, all throughout. You're going to see people that look like me, Richie and Terry. So, and just think of this: when you look at West Africa and you look at New York City, right? What do you think would have been an easier place to get to from Senegal? From Senegal to New York, or from Senegal all the way over to Papua New Guinea? What would have been easier to get there? That's what I'm saying. Like, come on, man. You know. So no diss to my brother Kwame, but yeah, I am Aboriginal and indigenous. I'm indigenous. I'm everywhere.
Kwame used to be in the MBK house.
I'm everywhere all at the same time. MBK is my boy. I rock with him, but I don't agree with the European man saying, well, his DNA say, man, get the fuck out of here. He was every goddamn where. And the reason, and I'm gonna say this, the only reason why the Europeans say that we wasn't here first, listen to me, y'all. Listen to me very well. Let me take this candy out my mouth, because I want y'all to listen to me. In America, black people have a reparations claim. If they ever told you that 60% of y'all we didn't bring over on slave ships, you was already here, indigenous to the land, your reparation claim would turn from not just getting money, they would have to give you back the fucking land.
Right.
So they had to take your name and say your name was George Macon, give you an English name and say we brought you from somewhere else. They could never tell you the truth about any goddamn thing because the whole claim would change.
That's it. It's a house of cards. It's a house of cards.
That's why I tell people, stop listening to their DNA. It's going to have to fit the narrative of the stories that they wrote in their books.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to have to, they have billions and billions of dollars invested in institutions and books based off of your DNA, your astrology, your anatomy, and where you come from. So now they can't automatically just come and say, hey, well, some of y'all was already here. Because then we're going to turn around and say, oh, we was already here? Well, give me the same thing you gave them goddamn Indians, goddamn it. They're not going to do that. That'll change the narrative of history. And all those DNA tests and everything else will be. So, nah, don't listen to that shit, man.
And definitely, Kwame, like, of course, you, man, in America deserve reparations. The same way reparations need to be paid here. Jamaica, all the islands, all the different places, Haiti. You understand? Like, this is a fact. This is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's a given. We need to just automatically assume that every black person across the diaspora deserves to be compensated for what they've gone through. It's not even a conversation. It's getting to the part where, again, as George has already highlighted and we tried to speak to, that we just do this thing as one movement. Because when white man's oppressing, they're coming together. Like English, Dutch, French, they're all warring at the same time as subjugating and trading black people. Understand that. So if we as black people don't understand when we have to come together at least to file our grievance and try to make a claim of some sort or come together to heal ourselves.
Hey, Rick, you see that, Richie?
Reparations
equals sellouts.
What's that?
He said reparations equals sellout. Where Terry at? I like that, Terry.
Well, why would he say that? Again, I mean, look, on a flat one, the amount of money, wealth, and disrespect and death and destruction that's been caused, straight away there needs to be. When two countries go to war, there's reparations. There's countless reparations being paid to other groups who've gone through, I won't even say similar. I'm just, similar type situations, yeah, and they've been paid. So I don't understand why that would even come up as being a sellout type of situation. How you acquire the money is something different. What you're prepared to do for it, again, that's where we can get into the terms of, okay, are you selling out to get this money? Are you making concessions? Is this money or whatever resource they're giving you gonna matter? That's definitely a conversation. But
I didn't,
this whole thing of not
I didn't,
being able to get shit, I don't understand that.
I don't think that people really understand what reparations is.
But George, right? When it comes, I'm a person is that we're so fixated on this reparations, and I understand some people need to get their reparations, but my issue is why are we so mindset on the reparations when we hadn't even sorted ourselves out in the first place?
I was about to answer that. That's
Right.
what I'm going to. I don't think that people understand what reparations is. See, this is the thing. Because some reparations was paid out before, but not in the manner in which it should have been. But this is reparations. Black people in the diaspora, what I just said about 20 minutes ago, we're going to get reparations when we understand what unity is. Unity in numbers. When black people decide and get tired of being tired and just say, listen, fuck your 4th of July, fuck your Memorial Day, fuck your Independent Labor's Day and all that shit. Fuck all that. We ain't fucking with that. We fucking with our shit unapologetically. That's when your reparations is going to come. Because right now the white man is saying, "Why I ain't got to give you shit. You niggas still believe everything I tell you." But the minute we start treating the white man the way we treat each other, reparations will be given to us overnight. What happens is reparations is going to come in your unification and understanding what it is that you need to do. You're not going to get reparations. You're not going to get reparations from a bully that has no reasons to give it to you. You still watching my games. You still working my jobs. You still supporting me. Y'all so stupid. You still celebrate 4th of July. Y'all was still slaves. I ain't giving you niggas shit. But the minute we say, man, fuck that, man, 1804 is our holiday, and we doing it this way, now that's going to shake up his foundation because he's not used to you doing it. You have to do something unprecedented. And reparations is not the money. Reparations is the restoration of your mind. The money is secondary. The land is secondary. Right. But the minute you restore the mind, everything else falls right into place. This is why, see, I understand chess, man. The white man come down and says, the white man play chess. He say, listen, you niggas celebrate 4th of July. And our great-grandparents was like, celebrate 4th of July. Man, fuck you and your 4th of July. He said, all right, well, you'll be dead soon and your grandchildren will be celebrating. And that's all he did. He raised up a whole new generations of people. What do you say to those who say that Africa is not the origin? I don't care nothing about that. That's not really the topic. Fuck them.
Well, you see, the joke of it is as well, we did a show with the head of the reparations movement over here in the UK. You can go back in our archives and find that show that me and Terry did with her. And again, a lot of the show, despite us kind of touching on this money situation, was about the self-repair angle.
That's it.
The part that has to be done where there's no white man involved, there's no money involved, it's just us self-repairing and realizing what we've gone through, what we need to do to reconsolidate ourselves, repairing the black family and that moral fiber before even getting to that part of, as we're talking about or mentioning and touching on, the banging of the fists on the table and saying, right, where's the money, where's the land, etc., etc. And again, I think if, as George is saying, once we come together properly in our minds and understand who we are, I don't even think the process will be how we're looking at getting reparations right now.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You understand? It's not going to be that.
Yeah, reparations is not. See, listen, what people don't realize is money is an illusion. Money is not real. They need bodies and participation that generates money. The minute we begin to put our bodies in the participation of something that we want that will benefit us, that's when your reparations is going to come. Right now, our bodies and participation is aligned with what the white man wants and what everybody else wants. It's not, our bodies and participation is not aligned with the development of black people. It's just not. It's not. Our bodies and mind is aligned with the development of everybody else but ours. So that's why I said we got to use propaganda to push people forward, man. That's just where it's at. You know, We need think tanks. We need our mind. Money is nothing without your mind and the body being maneuvered in a position to actually carry out the plan that the mind says.
Hmm.
Right now, we go to work every day and get up to go work for Mr. Charlie. Then we go buy Mr. Charlie's cars. We buy Mr. Charlie's clothes. We eat Mr. Charlie's food. We do everything the way Mr. Charlie and Mr. Gilmore said.
But you know, in talking on future tenses of the government and how we perceive the government now, what is understanding all the history now and present? How do we see the government today, and how do we believe that we need to create our own kind of committee to able to enforce what our motives are towards the government?
Well, I'll say this, and I'll close out at this because I got to get off. I'll say this: it's what I've been saying for the last 20 minutes. We have to find some type of propaganda strategies in order to social engineer our people into a new way of thinking. We have to galvanize Black people and socially engineer them into a new way of thinking, where they can start push forward something that will better Black people. I think that at first, this is just my opinion. I think it first has to start here in the West and then move towards Africa before we even get to Africa. There has to be a redevelopment or realignment of the Negro people that's been here, because we influence the world already. We influence the world in everything that we do. Everybody stops and watches. You know, every time we do something, we already seen it. So now what we have to do is realize our greatness, and we're gonna have to start using propaganda strategies. My thing is, Black people have to have the heart to start questioning other Black people. Somebody should immediately went down in the Caribbean, got those CARICOM leaders, came to America, got Dr. Claude Anderson, Yvette Carnell, and said, "What the fuck are y'all doing? Y'all better go in the fucking, all of y'all better have a meeting somewhere in the room, and don't come the fuck out until y'all come out with a think tank in the way that y'all gonna use propaganda to galvanize the people. If not, if y'all stand up before the people and talk, man, y'all gonna come up missing." We do it in the hood every day. So why you letting people lead you astray? When CARICOM got that money from the British government, that shit didn't go to the fucking people. So the thing is, at some point, Black people are going to have to say, if you want to be a leader for us, then this is what we want from you. So you need to go down there with them. Y'all need to go in the hotel for 3-4 days or whatever. And when y'all come out with a game plan. If not, then we ain't got no business following, because it's time. It's about time, man, that we start galvanizing our people psychologically. And my thing is, the first start of it is taking our holidays and celebrating our holidays nationally first. So that's my stance. But I believe that Black people in the Caribbean should be all over the Black leadership in CARICOM. They should be able to breathe. Black people in America should step right to ADOS and all the other leaders. You speak for us, but this is what we want. This is what's going to have to happen. It's going to have to be a paradigm shift within the brain, man. A psychological change. Because reparations is a mental thing. It's not money. Money is secondary. Listen, what is power? What is power? I know people people that got the power to kill somebody but can't talk their way out of a parking ticket. So what is power? The true essence of power is in the mind, psychologically. Having the ability to maneuver people in the manner in which you want them to do for a greater cause. And this is what we got to do. You got to use proper propaganda and social engineering to change or create a new matrix within the matrix for your people to follow. Because right now, everything that we do is for the benefit of everybody else but Black people. So I rest on that.
Okay. As anything, George, if you wanted people to hit you up on your YouTube page and your information, please do go give your info and where people can find you.
Yeah, y'all come on right over to my George Macon 2 channel, and my George Macon 1 channel. Me and Richie, we always over there kicking up dust, talking shit. You know, start trouble on my George Macon 1 on my George Macon 1 channel, man. So
yeah. So people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Tomorrow we have Bill Summers. If you can share, like, subscribe, as I always say, spend black, believe in black, move black, make black come through your veins. But I want to pass to our co-host to reel us out before we go.
That's all, people. Big up to everybody in the chat that's been commenting, that's been liking. I don't know whether he's here today, but someone donated earlier by the name of Bruno on the PayPal. So big up to them, and big up to you, Sunray, for donating as well earlier. Big up to everybody though that's made the show with their comments, questions. Join us again, as Riggsy said, tomorrow. That's going to be another good talk. And yeah, stay safe right now. It's a madness, but keep your heads and keep thinking, you understand, and do the research. Don't accept blindly, and understand who is in control of your government right now. So when you are offered things, when it is time to problem solve, find your Africanized self, go into yourself and try to find the right pathway. You understand? It's not hard. So be safe, look after your families, and join us tomorrow. Yeah, me for more info.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Serge?
And this is Black TV 7 once again.
Gunshot. Bye.
We still alive. Are we still alive?
Hey!
Yeah, we live.
We still alive.
We still live.
Reparations is for sellouts. Why y'all never want to talk about real freedom and real justice for black people worldwide? Get your ass out of here, man.
Nigga, if you wanna be free, you gotta learn about Africa. Even if you're just about the money. That's what I'm saying. Learn about global politics out here. That's the only way forward.
Some of them just come in and
love you, family. We love you, family.